Well, okay, we're going to wrap up part one of our independent film series. As I said before, part two is going to involve taking some of these practices and taking some of the things we learned here in part one and actually applying it to building shaders and building materials for our robot. Okay, so you're definitely going to want to go over there and check out part two to see some of these practices put into use. Okay, but let's go over what we learned in part one. One of the things we learned is you wanted to kind of determine what your goals are, and you want to kind of determine what your platform is going to be. These things are things that you're going to do in advance of starting any project. What you really want to do is kind of get a grip on where where your project is going to be shown, and then why are you doing your project? If you're doing it for professional output, that's going to get you more into that cinematic and video range. Then it's going to dictate that your textures and your materials, you're going to spend a little bit more time on them, and you're going to have to do some things like make sure that you got detail in your close-ups, and things like that. Okay, production design, very important. Use pictures. You know, use real-world references. If you can, engage a production designer to help you to accomplish those goals. Your goal there is to try to accomplish integration to make sure that your model is going to faithfully exist in the real world. Okay, looks like it faithfully exists in the real world. Third thing here is color palette. I kind of showed you how to use Adobe Cooler. You can pull up some metal textures and sample them along with it. That's what we're going to do in that. But you could pull up metal textures, you could pull up rubber, you could paint, whatever kind of textures you're going to use, and sample that right along with what you've gotten from Adobe Cooler. And that'll kind of help you to start establishing a look, okay, that can translate down the pipeline to getting a good image. Next, we talked about software independency. Don't get hung up on software. Don't get hung up on learning one specific product. Use the product that's going to be efficient for you, that's going to yield good results, the results that you're looking for, and then it's also going to fit inside your learning curve and fit inside your pipeline. Okay. For instance, Cinema 4D, the newest version of Cinema 4D is integrated extremely well with After Effects. If you're somebody and you're going to rely on After Effects in that pipeline, you may look into Cinema 4D and how best you can get images from there into After Effects. Okay. Fifth, you want to control your render. And we spend a lot of time on that. You just want to make sure your render is compatible. You want to make a choice in a renderer that's going to once again yield good results for you. That's going to give you what you want. If you're looking to do metal like we were in our case, you want to make sure that render is going to have an appropriate amount of shaders that are going to give you, for instance, BDRF and things like that. So you want to make sure that render is compatible with the type of imagery you're going to put out. Any of one of the renders that we talked about in the last section are more than capable of getting high-class, high-quality imagery and handling any kind of model that you might throw at it. Okay, but you're not confined to those renders. You can use whatever render gets the job done for you. Just when you step out of that little camp there, you kind of want to make sure that the renderer you're using completes the goal and does what you want it to do. You want to ask yourself, 8-bit, 16-bit, linear, RGB. You try to work in 32-bit or 16-bit as much as possible. Just as to give yourself as much latitude and much to play with as possible in your image when you take it over to comp. Lastly, understand real-world cinematography. Can't stress enough to you the importance of understanding how light behaves and how light responds, and how metal and surfaces respond to being lit. So if you can, if you've got that background, awesome. If you don't have that background, once again, it's same as production designer. See if you can get someone on your crew who, your DP, or and ideally want it to be the DP. If it's not, if you have someone else who has that type of background and it can give you a hand in understanding how to establish your lighting rigs and set up lighting to make sure that you get the best out of it. Okay. Okay, so we're going to sign off for this part one of texturing shading, and we're going to head over to part two. Now, part two is a fully integrated workflow where we're going to drive through the process that I used in creating materials for the Jezebel robot for our webisode, Seeing Tomorrow. By all means, I would hope that most of you guys will use this, go through this, and then head right over to part two. If you haven't, and you're going to stop here at part one, I want to thank you very much for watching along with us, and hope you learned something. My name is Jody Eric Matthews. Once again, thank you, and I will see you over in part two.